Dearest listeners, Chapter 5 of Just Breathe for Caregivers. Reviewing the guests we've recently spoken with, Josh Maggie from Social Benefits Advisor and Helen Ruth H.R. Harwell, the estate planning attorney out of Charlotte, North Carolina. So if you had a loved one who refused estate planning, didn't have any powers of attorney, had nothing preset, and ended up in the hospital, how would you handle that? Now, if that person is mentally competent and they're at the hospital, you're going to need an attorney, and you're going to need two witnesses that are not related, and you're going to need to go to the hospital, and you're going to need to sit down with that person, and you're going to need to put in medical and financial powers of attorneys in the Carolinas. Other states have things like health proxies for the medical portion. So it's important that you know you have to get those processes done. Hopefully they're competent, because you can do a lot of things at a fairly reasonable price tag, and they need to start making decisions that they're not going to be comfortable with, but they need to be made. If they're not competent enough to make these decisions and the doctors say that they cannot make them on their own, they're going to need the court to appoint a guardian. That is a very expensive process, and it can take 3, 4, 5 months to get it all done and put into place. In the meantime, the hospital is going to listen to whoever the next of kin is that shows up to try to help take care of them, and hopefully someone does. But they're still going to have to ask the patient, who may not be mentally stable enough or emotionally or physically stable enough to answer those questions. So please, the one thing I beg of you, please sit down and talk with an estate attorney before you get to that position. And Helen Ruth did a really great job about talking about it. And Cindy experienced it firsthand.
Yes, when Helen Ruth talked about the importance of the POA, the reason why my husband Randy and I did do the POAs is because he got to the point, he was getting to the point of becoming incapacitated. And I didn't realize in the very beginning of his sickness that was going to happen. So we did what normally everyone else does. We wait. We waited because we didn't think we needed the information right then and there. We didn't think we had to go to an estate attorney. We didn't think we needed POAs. You know, we didn't think there was a reason for us to have those things at that time. But then something happened with my husband. He ended up having that aneurysm. And when he had that aneurysm, he almost died. And I realized, oh my gosh, we have nothing in place. And when he recovered, thank God he recovered, then I was on this stick to wanting to get this done. And it wasn't just the POA, it was also the living will. We didn't have a living will set up. You know, we also didn't have our will set up. And I always thought we had plenty of time. And it turned out I did not have a plenty of time. So we went ahead and got it all done. Went to an estate attorney. He helped us through the process. We ended up, you know, doing everything that we needed to get done at that point. And thank God we did, because 2 months after that, my husband was then diagnosed with vascular dementia. And if he had been diagnosed with vascular dementia prior to that, I would have been stuck. We couldn't have done this.
Then you would have had to go to the guardianship.
Right.
And just out of personal experience, that cost $25,000 the first year, because of it required 3 attorneys. The one you hire and 2 court-appointed attorneys. So it's very, very important. And if you're in Charlotte, they're going to appoint an attorney to handle all of the finances as well for the duration of the guardianship, which is the duration of the life of the person that you're taking care of.
Yeah,
so it's very important that you actually take the time, do this process. Don't wait on it.
I wanted to say another thing about it. Going to see this attorney, when you get all the paperwork and all that stuff done, you know, it didn't cost as much as I thought it was going to. First of all, it was fairly reasonable. I didn't think it was extraordinarily expensive. I really didn't, but I didn't know. And for those of you out there who are thinking the way I thought, you need to check it out. You need to go see an attorney, talk to them about your expenses, let them know what it is that you need, and let them tell you what else you need too, because you want to make sure you're covered completely. And if you're not covered completely, then you're going to end up having a problem. And when you have the problem, the expenses go way higher. So that's why you need to make sure that you do talk to an estate attorney. I know a lot of you out there may want to do this online and do this on your own. We even thought about doing that ourselves, but it was complicated. And I ended up thinking, we really need to see an estate attorney. So,
well, not only that, they have to file it with the state, so that it's a valid power of attorney.
Right.
So it's really important to use that.
And there's things that they may not cover online that the estate attorney would cover. So that's important too. You have to make sure that even though it may be a legal document online, it may not cover everything you need. So
that, and it can be reversed a lot easier when you're using the template forms than when it's very specific to your case.
Right.
So you don't want to have that problem, somebody else trying to come in and supersede you. And while we're talking about that, we had the wonderful guest of Josh Maggie, and please follow Social Security Benefit Advisor. He is a wealth of knowledge. Having worked for the Social Security Department, he knows a lot about what you're dealing with. And I know some of you would want to go to an attorney to file for Social Security disability to get the help. Josh does the same thing, and he is certified with the Social Security in order to be able to do that. But unlike an attorney, he had years of working internally for the Social Security Department, so he understands the rules and regulations right down to the detail. And he helped my husband. And there were things he had us do, like, oh, you need to contact this department to get this information. And he would give me the phone number for that person and their email, and I would contact them. And literally in 72 hours, I had information I would have never known we needed, or it could have taken me months to get. Or that one piece of information could have been what would have gotten my husband denied. So he was able, now it is a long process. We had to file an appeal because they didn't actually process it properly initially. And it was 18 months before Social Security came back. But he was approved, thank gosh. And my husband was already on early retired Social Security. We just applied to get the disability because of his health conditions, so that he'd have full Social Security. And that's a huge difference between your full Social Security, which is age of 67, or the amount you'd get if you retired at 62, 63, 64. And that impacts you the entire time that you're on Social Security for the rest of your life. And it also impacts the widow's benefit. So it's important that you may have retired early, but if you retired early due to a health condition, please reach out. His website is also available under the podcast that we've done. I've put their contact information so that you can reach our guests. So please go in and take a look and see what's out there and who is out there and how that's going to help you to get to the next part of, or the next chapter. And I'm going to tell you, Josh literally walked us through what we needed to fill out, what we needed to do. Yep, you got that right. Boom, helped us tell us where to file it. Oh my gosh, it is so much easier than I could have ever dreamed of doing it on my own. And you and Randy ended up having to go for a disability. So, I mean, that's a huge thing.
And we did go and do it on our own because we didn't have anyone to go to. And the hospital was the one that advised me right then and there when he was in the hospital and he had diagnosed with renal stage disease. They said he would qualify for disability. So, they told me to call Social Security, and I didn't know who else to call, but the representative, they answered the phone. I didn't know who else to talk to.
You're talking to the 800 number.
Right. So I'm talking to the 800 number and, letting them know, this is what's happening. He's in the hospital. We need to apply for this. And they took the information, but it wasn't just one phone call. I had to go back and forth with the Social Security disability. They were asking for things. They were asking for the hospital to send them information about this disease he had and to make sure that he had, the availability of having the the disability, So that was one of the things. And then also the fact that, Randy got sick, Randy got sick all of a sudden, even though he had diabetes and it was a progressive disease, that end-stage renal came all of a sudden. And when it came all of a sudden and he was sick and he became to where I had to take care of him for 24 hours a day, it wasn't a progression. It just happened. And when he was in the hospital for 3 weeks, I'm sitting here thinking, I'm going to have to take care of him for 24 hours a day, and I didn't have anybody else to really help me with that. We didn't have the money. We didn't have the source. He already lost his job. He got some severance at that time, but we didn't have any other income coming in at that point, So we ended up, having to deal with the fact that we just didn't have the funds, and slowly things started coming in. It took about 4 months for us to get our disability, but that's because of his diagnosis.
Yes.
And that doesn't happen. It does not happen like that automatically, just so you know. But for us, it did come through 4 months later. Income started coming. That started helping us. The other thing I did, so just so you know, if you ever get into a position like this, I called the mortgage company. I let them know what was our problem. They helped us with that. I called the credit card companies. They also helped us with that. So it's just, you have to, try to help yourself through the process. And like I said, I had no one to talk to, about this ahead of time. So I'm like digging through things, trying to figure out what to do. And just by calling the creditors and the mortgage company and things like that, at the car loan, they're more than willing to help if you let them know what's going on.
Yeah, they can put the payments to the end of the loan,
Right.
Or they can give you a forbearance. So it's important to reach out to all of those places in the beginning, not when you're 3 months behind and you're about to lose your home.
Right.
In the beginning, the first 30 days, you need to be making those calls. So not only are you a caregiver somebody in the hospital, life-threatening illness, you're making major medical decisions and life-changing decisions for not just you, but for the caregiver, the patient. And I think that's something that a lot of people miss, that not only are you making those decisions, and if you have family, siblings, spouse, you need to communicate and make decisions where everybody's comfortable, not just the person that's dying. And it also needs to be that everybody in the family needs to respect the wishes of the patient. And they don't need to sit there thinking they're the queen or the king in charge, because that makes it even harder. And when there's multiple people, the biggest thing I've seen and experienced is you can either work together as a team. Thank God with my mother-in-law, we worked together as a team. We all tried to be there for each other, no matter how little or how much. But if you don't work together, you can't call in from 300 miles away and demand people do things and tell people how to do things, but you don't want to actually physically step it up to the plate. You need to be respectful of the person that is stepping it up to the plate. And when they say, I need your help, please step it up. So I think the biggest thing that I've experienced, and I've talked to others that have experienced, is a caregiver needs a respite. They need time off. And so you're like, oh, that person's got it. It's okay. I don't need to worry. Yeah, you do. Because it's the mental, emotional, and physical health of the caregiver suffers. There is a large number of caregivers whose health declines and often die before or just after the patient they've been taking care of, because they failed to take care of themselves. So if you have a loved one and someone's taking care of them, volunteer to spend 2 or 3 days taking care of the loved one, and let them have a few days off to go out of town, take a vacation, clean their house, get their hair colored, whatever it is they want to do. Sit with the patient, sit with the loved one, the family member. If you can do that for the caregiver once a month, to give up 1 weekend a month and let your loved ones have a day off and take care of your loved ones, that makes a huge difference for the caregiver. The primary caregiver goes through a lot. And when you first take that role on, you have no inkling, no idea how huge of a role that is.
Yeah. The other thing I want to talk about too is, my family was very supportive. They really were. I mean, even though my daughters were out of town and my youngest was here, my girls had babies. They couldn't come on the, they just couldn't, and I wasn't expecting them to. But they were always checking up on me. They're always checking up about their dad, trying to make sure, what's going on. They're always in the loop. And we communicated very well with each other, and they were very supportive in the way that they could be, which was very helpful to me, even though they couldn't be here physically, emotionally, they were there for me. And they helped me in that way. And I had friends, thank God, from Florida that did come and stay with me a couple of weeks. And it was a married couple. And the husband would stay with my husband while she and I went out, just to give me a break. That's really important. And that's kind of unusual because, sometimes you don't have people who can do that. They work, but they were retired and, they were able to come and help me at that point. My neighbors, like I said before in our first podcast, they were wonderful neighbors. A lot of them, if I ran in to tell them I needed help, they would stop what they were doing and they came over right then and there and helped me, with him. There's different things you can do and ask help, have people help you. It's just you have to ask. And you can't think that they are going to automatically do that for you because they don't know what to do. They don't know what you need. So you have to communicate. That's really important that you do that. Communicate to them what you need. Even if you think they should know, they don't. That's something that we need to.
And I think a lot of people just assume you've got it. Mm-hmm. And so they just sit back.
Right.
Because they don't know that you need help.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why asking is so important. But when you volunteer to offer help, please, if you can give up 1 2-day weekend a month to relieve the caregiver and tell them, I don't care, do whatever you want, whatever you need to do. I'm going to stay with mom, dad, aunt, uncle, grandma, whoever it is, grandpa. You're going to stay with them. I've got them for 2 days. You're okay. Because not only is it the time away,
mm-hmm.
they get to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to tell you, as a caregiver, sleep deprived is a huge part of caregiving. Because think about if you've ever had a baby and you have, and I call it mom ears. We are constantly on mom ears.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're worried about that person. And it's not just because even if they're in a facility, whether it's assisted living, skilled nursing, something to that nature, you get phone calls at 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
If you're taking care of them at home, you're never off duty,
mm-hmm.
ever. So just to take a Calgon bath and relax and
mm-hmm.
just have a glass of wine and close your eyes for 8 hours without having to worry about somebody needing you mm-hmm. is a huge help.
Yeah.
It's a huge, huge help. And so part of what's happened in our journeys is that there's things that had Cindy and I known each other several years ago when Randy got sick, I could have helped them with some of the Medicare, the health insurance. Mm-hmm. And because I am an insurance agent and I do own Carolina Health Connections, we have a referral board of resources that we utilize and we have for clients. Mm-hmm. So we actually have boards on the wall with business cards. And then Cindy has found a new calling mm-hmm. after all of this with wanting to work with people and help people get through their grief. And that grief process, it starts the moment you become the caregiver and you realize the person you love is going downhill, and they may have 1 year, 2, 3 years, or they may have a month left.
Right.
But you start the grieving process while you're watching them decline in front of your eyes. Mm-hmm. So it's so important. It's not just after death. I know my personal experience, because of being there watching it, that I grieved for a year watching that person die in front of me. And I watched my mother-in-law, we watched her die. We knew she had hospice. We knew that her cancer had come back. We knew she was dying, and she was not independent and mobile at all. She was really got bedridden at the end, wheelchair bound, and you could see them going downhill. And I refer to it as the longest set of stairs you will ever go down. Because you go down the stairs, you take a few steps, they're declining. Maybe they're going to stop. They're going to sit on that step because it's pretty comfortable. A couple weeks later, they go down a few more steps. We're going to stop again. I'm telling you, that is absolutely emotionally and mentally exhausting.
Yeah. Yeah, the roller coaster. Yeah, I went through that roller coaster because he would, in the beginning, he was really sick. He didn't have use of his hands. I had to, take care of everything for him, and then slowly he got his hands come back, and he was able to use the walker. He was in a wheelchair, and then he went into the walker, and then he went to physical therapy, and he looked like he was getting better, and that gives you hope. You want them to get better, and he wanted to get better, and we were on this high roller coaster, going up, thinking, okay, things are getting better. He's gonna make this, and I was his biggest cheerleader, and and I was there for him, and giving him all the positive energy I could give him, so that he could continue on this high, and then slowly it started going back down again, and then we ended up finding out he had vascular dementia, and we're like, where did this come from, and how did this happen? We didn't know. It just happened. And I started seeing signs of it, and that's when I went to a neurologist trying to find out, what was happening with him, and that's when they diagnosed him with vascular dementia, which apparently happened while he was going through dialysis. And it's just one of those things that happen. And then we went up again because I put him in an oxygen tank. I had him in an oxygen chamber, and that was only because he had a bacterial infection. And it helped him cognitively to where he started talking again and having conversations again. He was being himself again, which was a high, you know.
Gave you hope.
Gave me really a huge hope, and then he ended up getting better again. And then he ended up getting off the walker onto a cane, and we were seeing our grandkids. We could travel while he was even having dialysis. So, I'm letting you can do that as long as he has dialysis wherever you're going to be. And we ended up doing those things and seeing our grandchildren and seeing our daughters and things like that, to where I could take him places. And then he started gradually declining again. And then the decline started happening Christmas of 21. And we had all the family there and everything. And we took pictures, and we had Santa Claus, and, we did the big family thing, not knowing that was going to be his last Christmas. And it ended up being his last Christmas because he declined even more and more and more. And that's when I saw the deterioration. That's when I realized he's not going to make this. This is ending.
But you had the blessing of that last Christmas.
Yeah.
And so that's something that I can't reiterate enough. Take pictures, give family pictures, do videos of your loved one.
Yeah.
Because you will have cherished moments that you can look back on.
Yeah.
And something I've recently come across was these QR metal codes that you can put on a gravestone, or you can put them on a urn, or you can just do the QRs and share. And there are several different companies doing that now. And you can create a video, like a memory video, from pictures and videos and audio, and you can still share that person even though they're no longer here.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have happy moments, and somebody said this to me and it was very helpful, video it and share it with family. Yeah. Let people see that loved one. When someone's having a happy day, they're singing, they're dancing, they're out to dinner, they got to do something that they normally don't get to do very often. Share those happy moments. Share the family history. I am so loving family history right now, and going through that. So what we're saying is, it's a tough road. And you need a counselor, you need a therapist, you need a support group, you need someone to help you. And so it doesn't always have to be a counselor. Like you said, it's a friend. I've had, friends, family that I could count on that were there for me. And we're there for each other and we help each other. If you don't have that, there are counselors. If your loved one is in hospice covers a counselor. They pay for it. So you don't have to worry about, I don't have the extra money to pay for a counselor. Hospice will provide you a counselor to talk to. They're called grief counselors.
Right.
And we will have one of those actually as a guest coming up in the next couple of months.
Yeah.
So it's important that you realize there are people and resources, and just grab them. Take them. When somebody offers them, please take them. If you don't know where to turn, reach out to us. We have a Facebook page and a website. Please reach out to us. JustBreathe4Caregivers.com. Through the Facebook page, that is set up. You can message us and we'll be happy to message you back. We're having a little hiccup getting our email together at JustBreathe4Caregivers.com going. We should have that up and running here this week. But definitely reach out, because we have a mountain of resources and a mountain of experience coming out of this, years of it. And we're here to help you get through the process to make it a little bit easier. Now we want to let you know our next guest coming up, it's going to be Rebecca Barnes. And yes, she is another attorney, but this is an attorney that is an advocate for children with disabilities. So when I talk disabilities, whether they have Asperger's, they have, we just talked about Down syndrome, they have any kind of learning, physical disability. Rebecca's very, very passionate about helping people and using the law to get as much extra help that you can possibly get for your child. And now here's a big important part, and you don't think about it. You need to start when they're teenagers if they have a disability that's going to be a lifelong disability. And you need to plan, and you need to apply for Social Security disability. So that's why Josh Maggie's so important. He can help with that. You need to make sure you've got powers of attorneys in place, the POAs in place. You need sure that if you have money and you want to leave something, that the trusts are properly set up. Because if you don't set the trust up correctly, your child might be not eligible for Medicare disability because you decided to overfund the trust with that child's name on it. So everything you do is critical. And that's why these people are so critical, and these resources to helping you do it right. So we really are excited that she's going to be our guest next week. So join us for that. If you're taking care of a disabled child, and you were telling me the story about a friend who has a daughter with Down syndrome.
Down syndrome. And they've been wonderful with her. And it's just amazing. I mean, I've known this child since she was a young girl, 5 or 6 years old, and she's 43 now, and she's a beautiful young woman, and the parents have just really taken care of her in such a way that she's able to provide for herself. She's able to do things on her own. She's able to, go places with her parents and so forth, and it's just a beautiful thing to watch and to see how they were able to have the quality of life that she has. It is a beautiful thing. But they're in their 70s now, and they had to make sure that she was going to be taken care of, because these children are actually living longer. We don't know when she's how long she's going to live, but she's living longer than most children who have Down syndrome.
So that's not just at that age where they're at, that's estate planning for the parents and for the child, because they don't know who's going to live the longest. But you need to start thinking about it when your kids are teenagers. If they have a permanent lifelong disability, you need to prep for it. So when we're talking about being a caregiver, it comes in all shapes, sizes, and forms, and it impacts all different kinds of people. So we want to make sure that everyone is aware and has access to resources and knows that there are people that are there to help.
Right. I want to have a little takeaway. I want to be able to tell you, if anything, by listening to us, just take away these things, okay? The reason why we called it Just Breathe was because that's what I did when I was taking care of my husband. I had to make a sign for myself that said, just breathe. And I had it in a room where I pass every single day. And every single day that I passed, I stood there and I just took a breath. And I was able just to have a minute for myself. And that helped me get through the day. It helped me to be able to provide for my husband even better because I was in a better state of mind. And believe me, and if you're a caregiver, you know what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Our state of minds can go emotional to crying, to laughing, to crying again, to getting frustrated, to getting angry, to getting life is not fair, to life is a blessing. It just happens. But just take the time to just breathe and take that time for yourself. The other thing is that we are providing support and encouragement, which is so important to know that you're not alone.
Yes.
We are here for you. And I want to be able to let you know that we understand what you're going through because we've been through it. And we want to be able to be there for you and set you up with some resources that will help you to get through this time. And then if you've been through the caregiving process and you've already lost your spouse or you lost your child or you lost your parents or your grandparents, whoever it may be, you know what it feels like to lose someone. And we're going to be talking more about that too. We're going to see what can we do to help you on the other end, because that's where I am. I'm on the other end now. And it's hard. It's the hardest thing you ever have to go through. And your whole life changes. So that's something else that, we're having to deal with on top of everything else we were dealing with.
Yeah.
And it makes it really, really tough.
It's very life-changing because you gave up so much to take care of the person you loved. And now all of a sudden you're going through, some people go through a major identity crisis.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out who am I and what am I supposed to do next? Because when you're taking care of that person, you were thinking, oh, I really could use a vacation. Wouldn't it be nice if I could just take a nice leisurely vacation and go sit at the beach for a few days? And you can't.
Right.
You just can't. That your whole world is on hold. But I think we need to thank you all for listening today. And make sure to come join us next week. Mm-hmm. And we are getting the email up. It's together at justbreathe4caregivers.com. Thank you.